Well, guys, welcome back to Death by Southwest. We are on episode 16 lookup list, and due to some scheduling things, we have Mark standing in for Jenna today.
Hello again.
You sound quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Ooh, there we go. So, Mark did not listen to the episode.
Because of scheduling issues.
Okay, but you have seen the movie Gerry.
Yes, the most boring movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's so funny when we recorded this episode, which this episode, like this story, is what the movie Gerry is loosely based off of. So when we recorded this, I told that to Jenna, and she was like, duh. I knew halfway through exactly what movie was based on this. And she was, I asked her to give a synopsis of the movie to listeners who hadn't seen it, because who's seen that movie? And she did, and she was like, I love it. And I was like, yeah, it was pretty good. I like it. She was like, come on. It was boring. I was like, yeah, it was boring. It was pretty boring.
It's basically just walking through the desert with nothing going on.
It is. And it's so interesting you said that, because one of our first lookup list questions was just more information about how the movie Gerry was based on this story.
Let me stop you right there.
Oh, okay.
Was the question, are you a Casey Affleck fan?
No, but I already said that I was. I am a Casey Affleck fan, which is actually, I think now probably...
a bad decision.
Yeah, I think it's probably like a you can get canceled for that, because he was accused of some bad shit. I don't know. I didn't follow. I don't know exactly where that went, but he was accused of some bad behavior, I believe.
Well, let's stay out of that then.
Yeah, we're going to stay out of that territory. But that actually does lead me, before I get into the Gerry movie thing, we got a comment the other day, and I'm so curious to hear your opinion on this. We got a review on Apple. And I feel like you're going to have so much to say on this, so I'm going to remind you to just be honest, but maybe be
diplomatic.
Yeah. So the title for this review that we got on Friday is, "Can we please have one unwoke podcast?" And then the 1 star, and the review says, "Just stop. Enough of the woke junk." And I read it and I was like, I don't know what episode he listened to, or she. All of them, some of them, I have no idea. Like, are we that woke?
I wouldn't say you're that woke. It's just that, you kind of need to be careful these days on what you say.
But that's what I feel like we are. I feel like we're careful. I don't feel like we're overly woke in real life. I feel like we are open-minded, accepting, left-leaning people, perhaps, which probably I shouldn't say, and will maybe turn some people off. But I also have a very right-minded father and am open to all things. I feel like we just try to be respectful on the podcast, not like overly woke.
Well, exactly. You're just more considerate. You're not just going to say whatever you want to say and be like, oh.
Right. Like
that's what it is.
Right. But... And I understand where this person's coming from. Like I've listened to podcasts or, on TV shows or radio shows or stand-up or whatever. It's everywhere. Like, you have to watch everything you say. So I totally understand that. And I also think that there is, when you are putting something out in the public, you can just say whatever the fuck you want. But I'm not comfortable doing that, because well, at the end of the day, I just don't want to offend anyone. I'm not trying to be like super PC or overly woke. I just don't want to offend anyone unless it's an opinion that I feel strongly about. And then I'm going to offend you, and I don't care, because I feel strongly about it.
Just keep it nice and neutral.
I do feel like we keep it. But that's what I think this guy or girl is saying. You know what it might be? That I was talking about ChatGPT last episode, and I said, ChatGPT, he told me, and Jenna said, or she or they. And I was like, okay, yeah, or she or they. But I mean, I think we were just kind of joking about it. It wasn't like a very serious, we have to include every gender when we're talking about ChatGPT. I think it was more a joke.
Yeah, it's like AI. It's just like you pump stuff into it and it brings back great stuff
or not great stuff? That's another question on this list. You're going to find out.
Oh.
Anyways, to Jay Utah, who left us that comment, if you happen to continue listening, I'd love to know what made you think we were so super woke, just out of curiosity. So
I am, on the other hand, not interested at all.
Okay, great.
I'm just a guest, though, so everybody can be mad at me.
Okay, so the first lookup list, it was just kind of like more about how Gerry, the movie Gerry with a G, it's Gerry with a G, is important to know.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, is based on this. So Gerry with a G was made in 2002. It's Gus Van Sant's, the first of Gus Van Sant's Death Trilogy movies, preceding the movie Elephant in 2003 and Last Days in 2005. Each film is a sparse retelling of a true event, an attempt to understand what may have gone wrong. He looked at these films as an effort to find the truth and meaning in things that don't immediately offer any truth or meaning. Like Elephant was about Columbine. So how did something like Columbine happen? Last Days was about Kurt Cobain. And then obviously Gerry was about how two guys just wandered off and got lost in the desert, and one of them ended up dead. So how it happened is that Matt Damon told Gus Van Sant this story, but he basically just said, look, there's a story about these two friends who get lost in the desert. One killed the other. And Damon didn't tell him anything else. So that's all he knew. And he just went off to make this film based only on that. And he consciously chose not to research this story any further because he wanted to avoid like making it too closely related or too far unrelated from the actual story. He just thought it was a great inspirational like nugget to make a movie off of.
What's funny is I've watched Gerry twice now.
Why twice if you didn't like it?
One time I was suggested, and then it was suggested again by Mike and Jenna, always. And I was like, I'm going to try to power through. But I don't even know if someone gets killed in them because like halfway through, I want to kill myself. So I'm just like, I can't deal with this. If I watch 10 more minutes, like they're just going to find me like wandering in the desert with like a pistol. And I'm just going to be like, I watched Gerry. I just see a group of other fellows out there or anybody. And they're all, yeah, we did too.
Keep it woke.
We're just going to shoot ourselves because it's so fucking terrible.
Okay. So
And I don't love either actor, but like, I'm like, all right, these two guys, it could be good. You know, maybe it's comical, but Jesus.
No, it's not comical at all. It's
terrible.
Definitely not. So, okay, I'm not going to say it's terrible, but I found this blog.
It makes me dehydrated.
Where it says, the person who wrote this blog post says, Gerry leaves you a lot of time to think. The film consists of
killing yourself.
The film consists of long shots, long silences, and a great deal of contemplation. It may have the desired effect on some while convincing others to check out halfway through.
That was me.
That was you. Yeah, it doesn't tell much. So Jenna had asked, like, why is it called Gerry? And so it's called Gerry because both of the characters, Matt Damon and Casey Affleck's character, are both named Gerry with a G. Which, like, how many Gerrys with a G do you meet? That's weird.
Remember in the movie, that's one part. It's all, you Gerry'd the rendezvous, you know?
That's right.
It's
that's
like the old,
say.
But that's like a play off like Homer Simpson, The Simpsons, when it's like, he pulled a Homer, you know? It means you fuck up and you're an idiot.
Yeah, I'm going to start saying that. You pulled a mark.
No, mine are intelligent actions that always produce great
Oh,
results.
okay. So stylistically, I already said that Gerry is made of long shots through a variety of desert landscapes and a strange use of lavalier microphones, which are those little microphones which go on your like
lapel.
Thank you. Which accentuate the actor's breathing and footsteps, offering almost a claustrophobic feeling when they are small within the frame, which is like exactly. So anybody who
Isn't that like AMSR or whatever it is?
ASMR.
I was right?
Yeah, but anybody who watches our social media saw the video I posted of Jenna's dog Pilot, like running through the wash, and it's like, and Jenna at the end says, it's like his own version of Gerry, because that's like what the movie is. It's just them like walking through the brush and walking through the sand, and So that's the majority of what I have on that question.
I know those monotonous foot clops through the desert.
Yeah.
I've hiked a lot.
Yeah. Yes, you have hiked a lot when you grew up in Arizona.
Right. I mean, you hike here in the summer when it's hot.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
That's not the greatest time to hike here.
I know, but it rains here in the summer, and that's like way Reddington Pass, like it's a dry riverbed or canyon. But then in the summertime, God,
I remember our hike last summer. It was so hot.
It was very warm.
Okay, let's not get off topic. Ooh, I have a good next one. How easy is it to get lost in the Chihuahuan Desert? Have you ever been to the Chihuahuan Desert? New Mexico.
No, I have not.
Okay.
But, I mean, getting lost anywhere it's questionable. Like, I'm like a human compass.
Hey, you can't take that because we have a listener who we call the human GPS. Sean.
Okay, well, I said in the human compass, it's different.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And also, too, if you, like, get lost in a situation, you're like, oh, I'm in the wilderness and it's lost. Like, let's say you're not in Seattle and there's just cloud cover and there's just, like, a glow from here or there. Like, out here, it's pretty clear skies. So, say you get terribly lost, right? You're like, oh, I'm thirsty and whatnot. You know what you do? You sit down in your shade. You can't find where you're going. You just wait. Wait till morning.
And then?
Sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Then you have your bearings. You have 2 points of contact, north and south. And you know what all runs south? Rivers. Well, there's a few in the world that don't.
Yes.
Let's not talk about that. But the whole point is, like, then, at that point, it's just like this. If you're lost on a mountain, where do you go? You don't go up, you go down. Because civilization is always down.
Sure, but I think if it was as simple as wait till the sun rises and see like which direction is north and which is south, like then we wouldn't have this episode because one of them, they wouldn't have gotten lost, dehydrated, and one would have killed the other. Like it was like clearly, I'm assuming like David was going to graduate school. They seemed well-educated humans. I feel like they could have figured that out even without a compass. Obviously they didn't. And so that's why this was a question on the lookup list, because it's different in the desert. If you're not familiar with the desert, you can get turned around. Everything looks the same.
Well, plus
everything is the same color.
Also, like here, there's a lot of mountains and stuff. There's reference points that you can look at. But if you're in like the flat plains, even with the...
Yes, but you're saying something opposite then. You're saying that like because they were here, they should have found their way out.
Well, the Chihuahuan Desert is different. I have to research that and see what it is. It could be very like flat and open, which does disorient you. Because even if you have the sun, unless you are traveling with the sun, which is a bad idea if you're dehydrated, you need to travel at night or in the evening time, in the morning time.
That's true.
I mean, it's hard to get your bearings, but you need to like... It's hard to focus it.
They were traveling in the day. So even though Mark didn't listen to the episode, I did give him like a brief synopsis before we got into it. So the Chihuahuan Desert I'm going to tell you about it. It is a vast and rugged terrain that spans parts of Mexico, the United States, and even parts of Central America. Getting lost in this desert can be a serious and potentially life-threatening situation, especially for those who are not familiar with the area or who are not adequately prepared. It can be difficult to navigate due to the lack of distinct landmarks and the harsh and often unforgiving terrain.
It's a desert.
Plus extreme temperatures. And so now, but they were in a canyon, so they hiked down into Rattlesnake Canyon, which is a very big, expansive canyon. But I also think that they went with so little water. You know, I mean, it's impossible to know the situation that they were in, but I'm assuming that eventually their state of mind started impacting their ability to like figure out where they were going. Ooh, Rattlesnake Canyon looks pretty. Look how pretty that is.
Oh, it's gorgeous, but great place to get dehydrated in. You just lose your mind.
We'll post some pictures of like Rattlesnake Canyon.
Free mushrooms.
It looks kind of like the Grand Canyon a little bit.
Yeah. So there's a place here in Catalina called Catalina State Park. Mm-hmm. It's in, it's just north of us near Oro Valley. And there's the Romero.
Oh, my dad's told me to go hiking there, I think.
Yeah, it's a really cool place, and it's It's obviously the desert. You're on the like backside of Mount Lemon, and it's about a 4-hour hike round trip, like straight up. But it starts off slow, but then it's all climb. And it's all switchbacks. So even
explain what switchbacks are.
Switchbacks are very intense climbs of degrees immediately. Yeah, you're like climbing
Up,
10
down,
feet
yeah.
and 25 feet.
Right.
And so to get there,
because it goes right then left, it like switches
yeah,
back
it switches
and forth.
back and forth because
There
you're going
you
up
go.
the side of a cliff.
Right.
And the Romero Pool's up there, and it's just, like runoff from the mountain. So when the snow melt happens, which
we've talked about this on the podcast before.
Yeah, snow melt happens, you get pools.
Right.
Or generally when people go is the summertime because it's hot and the pools are full because of the monsoons and everything.
Pools, yeah.
The pools.
Pool, yeah, I was like pools.
Pools.
Did you get an accent suddenly? You put a microphone in front of your face and suddenly you're talking differently.
That's right, governor.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Anyways, so the climb up there is pretty intense, but then you can go like cliff jumping and everything. It's pretty awesome. So my experience of it, I went up there a few different times. The worst experience I had was going up. Worst is going up with my cousins and my brothers. Like we went up there and some friends, and it was the middle of the summer, right after the monsoons, hot as shit, like 110 degrees, 115 sometimes. And we all had gallons of water. Like, we were ready,
Prepared.
Because my whole life, we all going out in the desert, walking around, exploring stuff. Like, we know what it is. Dehydration is a problem.
Right.
Just keep that water.
Keep it hydrated.
But we went up there, and it was great. And, like, we started earlier in the morning. But what we did wrong, in a world where someone does something wrong, we were hiking, drinking all kinds of water and stuff, and then we got to the pools. It's all cool, but we drank most of our water,
Before you got there.
Before we got there, and then we got there, we all had a little bit of water, but not very much. But then you're jumping in the cool pools. It's great.
Feeling good.
And we spent way too much time there. So then it's like we start hiking down. And all of a sudden, out of water. Like, no one has any fucking water.
I was like, what's that noise?
It's...
That's your out of water
sound,
noise?
Yeah. Like when you drop the jug of water in the desert and you're like, I don't care about littering and dying.
Okay.
So we're like hiking down, and it's a rough trail, and there's 2 ways to get there. Like when you get to a certain point, like the halfway point, there's 2 different ways to go. The long, slow way around, which is it's a lot smoother. Like you're not going down the switchbacks, because even going up, it's a lot of effort, but going down, you're worried about slipping and all the business.
Hard on your knees.
So, like, at that point, like, everybody was, like, delirious, like fucking thirsty as shit. No one had any water. And I remember my brother and his friend Eric were like, we're fucking taking the fucking easy road. This is bullshit. Me and my cousin Matt were like, fuck that. We're taking the hard road. It's faster. We're going to get to that water that's in the car. We're dying, And then the end result is, like, we were, like, 10 minutes apart, like, maybe.
So it didn't matter which way
and
you went.
What fucking sucked is that my cousin Adam, who was with my brother and his friend, he had the fucking keys to the car. So, like, me and Matt were there. We're like, we made it to, like, the Oasis.
Got there.
And, like,
we can't
we're like,
get in.
And, dude, literally, we're like 30 seconds till we saw them show up. We're going to fucking smash the window with a rock. Fuck him. Like, I don't care about his car. Like, I'm thirsty as shit.
Yeah.
And what's funny is, like, we're like, there's water in the car and stuff. Like, there was an ice chest. But really what it was one, like, 16-ounce bottle of water. It wasn't even 16 ounces. It was, like, a glass bottle, like a old, like, Snapple bottle or something that he, like, had kept in there. It was, like, that was the only water. And then it's like a 30-minute drive to, like, anywhere you can get water at that point.
That isn't even that much water.
I know. So, like, when the car was open, then it gets that whole, like...
Who's going to get it?
Yeah, that last meal kind of shit. And, like, my cousin Adam is a fucking huge asshole. And he was all, dude, I saved this for myself. We're all, you're going to die if you don't shut up. So, like, everybody got, like, a little sip. Like, our lips were wet. We're all drive as fast as you fucking can to, like, the Circle K. We're going to nail some water. But it was, like, it's such a hard decision. Like, you're just in, like, robot mode to, like, get down. But the difference is, too, in that situation is that we knew where we were going. Like, we knew that there was a time limit. Like, it's going to take me, I have this
Well,
many thousands of steps, and I'm going to get it.
You're not just randomly searching like these.
But it's hard.
were.
Like, I couldn't imagine, like, doing that situation, like, being like, I have no idea where the fuck I am, and I have no idea where the fuck water is, because then, like, your hope starts to get lost, you know?
You curse a lot.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I just, like, listen to this story, because I've read comments on other podcasts where people say, like, oh, they curse so much. Every other word is F this or fuck, shit or this. And I've listened, I obviously edit the podcast. I listen to them back, and I curse a lot in everyday life. But on the podcast, I realized we almost never curse. Almost never on the podcast. I mean, occasionally. Oh, shut up. All right. Fine. With that was a good story. And with that, you fucking dig.
Who's cursing now?
We're going to move on to another question, which is, this one was really hard to find answers to. So Jenna had said in the episode, because remember I said Rafi and David were talking about slitting their wrists, like they were just going to commit suicide before dying from dehydration. And so Jenna had said, well, is that better? Is slitting your wrist less painful than dying from dehydration? I had said, I don't know. I would imagine it is bleeding out. So anyways, I typed into, obviously I always put every question through ChatGPT because he is my best friend. But then I also have learned to check that, because ChatGPT is not always correct. Actually,
it's like Google or like Siri. If you're are you an asshole? And she's all, I can't answer that question.
Okay, so I typed in, is it more painful to slit your wrists and bleed out or to die from dehydration? And ChatGPT was like, he said something like, as an AI model, I am not equipped to, he said,
you should have asked, is it worse to be thrown into a pool or getting your plug pulled?
Oh. Wait, what? Oh, he said, as an AI language model, I am not qualified to provide medical advice or information on methods of suicide. It's important to note that suicide is never the answer to any problem or situation. Then he gives me like a hotline. And I said, this is for research for a podcast. I'm not suicidal. And he said, I see. Thank you for clarifying. However, I'm not programmed to provide information or advice on methods of suicide.
So we will get sued.
Yeah. But so before I answer this question, what's interesting actually is another one of the questions I had said to Jenna was that ChatGPT only has info up until 2021. And she was like, that's pretty limited considering we're halfway through 2023. And so I wanted to triple check that. And so I asked him today, I said, like,
you're all, hey, old timer, you got any new information?
So his response was, as a language model, my breadth of knowledge is constantly expanding and evolving based on data that is fed into my system. However, my training data is based on internet text data up until September 2021. Therefore, my knowledge cutoff is up until that point in time. That's it. However, I can still provide information and insights based on patterns learned from data. And then I said, well, how far back does your knowledge go? And he said, I don't have a specific limit on the age of information I can draw from as long as it has been recorded in written form. However, the accuracy and availability of information decrease the further back in time we go due to the limitations of historical records and the deterioration of old documents. And his training data only goes back to the advent of the internet.
You're super obsessed with ChatGPT.
I am. I think it's it's like so interesting. It's so incredibly interesting, and just I find it absolutely fascinating. Anyways, I did ask ChatGPT about slitting your wrist versus dehydration. I told you he couldn't answer for me. So then I took to Google, and Google also gave me a lot of answers that said, here's a suicide line.
Suicide headline number one.
Yes, yeah. So it was a little bit hard to find, but I did find some interesting stuff that I'm going to what do you think let me ask your opinion, by the way.
I definitely think dehydration is worse than a lot of different deaths. Besides like burning alive or something. It's horrible. I wasn't like dehydrated when we took that hike. I wasn't dehydrated to the point where I needed like an IV, but I have been dehydrated from partying and drinking and not realizing it, and it was terrible.
Yes, probably not as terrible as dying from but like actual dying from dehydration though. But you maybe felt like you were dying.
But it was awful. Like we went to me and my friends went to a hockey game in Phoenix, and it was like a whole party weekend and stuff, and like not thinking about it, I was like, oh, everything's fine, like we almost got kicked out for like profanity at the hockey game. Like it's a hockey game.
Can't imagine with your profanity on this
I know,
episode.
with my sweet voice, Anyways, like it like went back to the hotel room. I like woke up in the middle of the night. I was like shivering. It's like, it was warm out and stuff. I was like shivering, like when you talked about the episodes, like the mucus and stuff, like constantly spitting, like it's terrible. Like shit, you're hot, you're cold. It's a nightmare.
It is.
Can't concentrate. Like and then like we were like driving back from Phoenix. I couldn't even drive because I was in terrible shape. And like I remember we stopped to like get a drink, and like I didn't really realize that I was like dehydrated. So like my buddy got me like a Coca-Cola, and I drank it, and it was like acid in my mouth. It was like the carbonation was terrible. I couldn't eat anything.
Did you think about drinking water maybe?
No, but I did drink water. But at that point, like once you get dehydrated to the point, like drinking water, like
you have to do it really slowly and carefully. Actually, it can be dangerous
you have to, like,
otherwise.
Little droplets. Like I'm like drinking it and then throwing it up, and
That's
then vomiting causes more dehydration.
All right,
so it's
calm
terrible.
down. You're stealing my whole answer.
Whoa.
Well,
talk to ChatGPT about it. Maybe he'll have the answer.
So this is not from ChatGPT.
Does he speak in a British voice? He's like, "Hey, governor."
He doesn't speak back. It's just
I know it's written in text.
Okay, so
it'd be cool though if you get like Sylvester Stallone's voice on there. He's all, yeah, you gotta say it like this, and it's not the best Sylvester Stallone, but it's funny.
It's okay. We're not gonna tell Sylvester Stallone that you did such a bad job. Okay, let me answer.
Okay.
Dying from dehydration, one website said, is generally not uncomfortable once the initial feelings of thirst subside. And I saw this and I was like, this cannot be correct. So I went deeper. And that website was very wrong.
Dying of thirst sounds terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. So when our bodies are deprived of water, they take water from other organs, which ultimately leads to organ failure and brain shrinkage. Dehydration is often considered one of the most painful and protracted deaths a human can experience. So this website, I have to share this story, okay? Settle in, because it's really cool. And I mean, it's not cool, but it's fascinating. We're not going to wait for Izzy to finish drinking because it's going to take too long. So I'm going to tell you a story that I found when I was researching dehydration versus bleeding out as a way of death. Okay, so I found this story to be super fascinating about how intense dehydration can be. So in 1994, the Italian athlete Mauro Prosperi entered one of the most intense and grueling endurance races in the world, called the Marathon des Sables. I don't know. A 6-day ultra marathon that takes place in the Sahara Desert and pushes people to their absolute limits. The temperatures during the race can reach up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's Phoenix, Arizona.
That is. You're right. And the
afternoon.
That's true. But these people are running. It's a marathon, so they're running at 122 degrees. The average runner drinks 3.4 gallons per day, most of which comes straight out as sweat. But for Mauro, things got really worse than that. After a major sandstorm, the former Olympian was caught alone for 10 days in the desert without a support team or supplies. Over the course of his wandering, he stayed alive by storing his earliest urine in bottles, since it had the highest water content before he was actually dehydrated, and drinking it later on. He killed and ate 20 bats and drank their blood in the hope of staying hydrated, which actually worked just long enough because he came across a goat herder and he was rescued.
Did he drink the goat herder's blood?
No.
So this is working out for me,
But even in such a short time, 10 days of being dehydrated, his body was so wrecked by this that his eyesight was nearly completely ruined. He almost went completely blind. His liver was severely damaged, and he couldn't eat anything other than soup or water for weeks. And it ultimately took him 2 years to fully recover from this. just from 10 days of severe dehydration.
Well, I mean, 10 days is a long time drinking
It
bat's
is,
blood.
but 2 years is a long time too. Bat's blood. Isn't that crazy? I mean,
it's pretty intense.
That's like another look-up list to look more into that story. I didn't.
Well, I mean,
that's crazy.
There's obviously like water in the body, in the blood. Like, I don't know how that works. I mean, I think it took a little risky action, especially bat blood. But
well, how much percentage do you think our bodies are made up of water?
It's 70%. Everybody knows that.
It's 50 to 70% depending on the person. Thank you very much. Not everybody
knows
knows
depends
that.
on if you're the Gerrys. You're like 12%. You know what I mean?
Gosh, that's not a woke thing to say.
But it's true. You know what I mean?
So an average man contains about 10.6 gallons of water at any given time in his body. It can differ on any day and explains why our body's weight fluctuates so much. And it's recommended that we each drink roughly 3 liters or almost a gallon, 0.8 gallon of water a day to replace the stuff we lose through breathing, sweating, and urinating. And 20% of that can come from the food that we eat.
Yeah, if you're eating like the wedge salad or something like that. Like
celery, watermelon.
Salad, yeah, exactly. You're just getting all juices. Yeah. Like for the listeners, I work in construction, so a lot of time I work outside. So when it gets hot here in the summer, a lot of times for lunch, instead of bringing like a sand wedge.
A sand wedge?
Yeah, like for golfing, because my job's not easy. No, it's like you bring like melons and fruits because they're
hydrating.
Yeah, exactly. Like because you don't want.
I've never seen you bring melons or fruits for lunch. By the way,
I do it in secret.
I think I think you just said that for the.
No, I used to a lot, but it's good because trust you don't want no one wants like an In-N-Out burger when they've been standing in 110 heat for
that's
6
true.
hours.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. I mean, I've always wanted.
Can I get an animal style? You know what I mean? Like just let it kill me.
I always wanted an In-N-Out burger, but fine. Okay, so death by dehydration, when the body is forced into extreme situations like heat, cold, or water deprivation, it makes a tactical decision to withdraw resources from the least essential parts first. What organ do you think is least essential first?
Which organ is least essential?
That your body, when you're dehydrated, draws water from.
That's interesting.
Is it?
Well, I know there's a lot of organs. Like, is it the brain?
No, you think that's the least essential organ?
No, I don't think it's least, but I think your liver's super important.
Right, so pick an organ that you think is least essential. What one do you donate if you could donate one?
Well, if I was not drinking water, I'd use my kidneys because they filter shit out,
Yes, so
I don't need it because I'm not processing anything.
Exactly. So I'd
like them to kick back on when tequila shots come.
With dehydration, your body draws water from the kidneys initially because your kidneys will reabsorb water that would have been used in urine. So this is why your urine gets darker when you're dehydrated and the urea concentration increases. That's another question for later on, if we can ever get there, which has to do with drinking your own urine. But we're not getting there yet. Don't ask about that yet.
I watch Waterworld. It works.
Stop it. We're not going there yet. It's next. So after the body realizes the water from the kidneys is not enough, then it draws water from your cells and other organs to retain the necessary blood pressure to keep you ticking. Your eyes will contract to expose the conjunctiva. Your lips will shrivel away entirely. Your teeth and gums will project outward like a skeleton, and your skin will blacken and dry out, and your tongue becomes a tiny piece of beef jerky. And when you're really dehydrated and if you get cut, you're too dry to even bleed. Wow, that's a really terrible description.
One time I was really hungover. I woke up in the morning and I started chewing on beef jerky and I didn't realize it was my tongue.
Oh, stop it.
I was all, so salty and delicious.
All right. Only after days of this slow torture will you die. With less and less water, the blood in your body will thicken, your blood pressure will drop drastically, and the oxygen and nutrients in your blood will take a lot longer to get to your organs, so they become deprived. Your brain, heart, kidneys, and liver begin to fail, and ultimately your brain will start to shrink from osmosis in an attempt to hydrate the body because the brain has a lot of water, and that will eventually cause you to die. So ultimately, that sounds terrible. Really painful and awful way to die.
Stab me to death or slice me open.
Yeah. So I couldn't. So it was possible to find stuff on dehydration. To find stuff on bleeding out, the internet doesn't want you to know. It just thinks that I'm suicidal and won't tell me anything. Most of what I found is that if it seems to be, this is obviously subjective, but that it is less painful to bleed out because you ultimately will become dizzy and your blood pressure falls and you'll pass out.
Yeah, you're going to shock. I mean, like if you hit a major artery, like, you know,
the initial, artery, that's what I read. Is that the initial,
like, you open it up, like you're talking about like minutes.
So
minutes are done.
The initial injury, like if you, again, this is triggering I'm sure for some people.
I know, but let's say you just like caught like your carotid artery, like in your thigh, like on a piece of
femoral artery.
Femoral artery. Yeah, that's right. Carotid arteries in
your neck.
But let's say you caught it on barbed wires, you're escaping prison, and then like you're like, oh shit, I'm bleeding. Like it's gonna happen real quick.
Really quickly, of course.
You'll get cold for a second amount of temperature.
As quickly as 5 minutes. If you hit one of your major arteries, it can be anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, and sometimes even less. It's different for everybody, but if you're slitting your wrists, and that's a very graphic thing to say, but like if you're doing that initial doing it will probably hurt. But after that, it's quick and pretty painless. Whereas dehydration is painful for days. And this is super morbid. So let's move on.
Well, I mean, it's death by itself. What?
I know, but still, let's move on.
We're not discussing the issue. We're just saying like,
we're just giving facts.
Stab me if I'm dehydrated.
Well, that's what Rafi did.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. So a question was Rafi from, I found in a bunch of articles, he was either from Doylestown or Boylestown, Pennsylvania. And one of our listeners, Sherry, who we've talked about a lot, she was like one of our first listeners.
Hey, Cher Bear.
She messaged us and said, hey ladies, I can help you out for your lookup list for episode 16. The town's name is Doylestown, Pennsylvania. It's about 40 miles or 1 hour and 12 minutes from Philadelphia, or 110 miles or 2 hours from the capital of Harrisburg. Coincidentally, it's about an hour and 10 minutes from me because she lives in Pennsylvania. So, and then she's so nice. She said, I hope this helps. Another great episode. So that's
Izzy's tearing up or she's making her bed on the couch right now. And it sounds like the Gerry's walking to the desert. It's all monotonous, you know?
All right. We have 2 more. So the drinking your own urine was one of them, which we kind of briefly talked about. So sorry guys for any noise that you're hearing. Like Izzy, my bulldog, is trying to tear up the couch behind me. So
she likes to make her little Betty Bye all special for herself.
She does.
She's a sweet dog.
She is.
So my opinion about this is this. I don't think it's a great idea to drink your own urine. It sounds like that homeboy who's in the Sahara Desert said, I'm going to start pissing when I'm still hydrated, which kind of makes sense. But
Sahara Desert. Oh, yeah. The marathoner.
Yeah, the marathon runner.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is like...
That was smart, though. He's right.
Yeah, he was right to do that at first. But, like, once you're dehydrated, when it comes out looking like molasses, like, you're not going to get anything out of that, you know? Like, a lot of people say, like, you know, urine is sterile. Urine is sterile until it leaves your body. Then it's no longer sterile. Like...
It's going to pick that up like crazy. Henry's barking at somebody or something. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. You may be partially right. I don't like thinking of pee like molasses. That's disgusting.
Well, I mean, it's really dark. You're dehydrated. It's bad.
That's true. Okay, so drinking your own urine is not a safe or effective way to hydrate yourself if you happen to be lost or without water. While urine often is mostly water, it also contains waste products that your body is trying to eliminate. Drinking urine can actually increase your dehydration and lead to further health problems. It's important to remember that urine is your body's vehicle for eliminating liquid and soluble waste. It also contains, aside from water, dissolved salts, minerals, and trace amounts of toxins from your liver. The more dehydrated you are, the higher concentration of these pollutants are in your pee, which is what you said. So if you're in a survivalist situation, you're likely extremely dehydrated and the concentrations are probably pretty high of like these toxins. So drinking urine, if you're at like a desperate point where you're like dehydrated out of water and then you're putting these pollutants back into your system, it can actually cause a buildup of toxins to a toxic level. It's a similar reason that it's dangerous to drink too much like seawater. You're not supposed to drink seawater.
I mean, like
the more you drink, the faster it dehydrates you.
Makes you mad.
Yeah, which is similar to drinking your own urine because too much of it can draw water out of your cells through the process of osmosis and make you more dehydrated. That being said, it is possible to drink urine without ill effects. A healthy person who's fully hydrated likely wouldn't be harmed by a couple of cups of his own
his or her
own urine, since urine is, for somebody who's hydrated, generally 95% water.
It's still gross. I mean, just like drink it out of the tap or something. You know what I mean? Like if you're fully hydrated, why would you drink your own piss? You know?
Well, like the guy in the Saharan desert, before he became severely dehydrated, he realized he was lost.
And he saved that piss.
And he peed in bottles and saved it for when he was, you know what I mean? Like he was pretty hydrated.
It probably looked like lemon water, like just a slight tinge. So
Stop it. We're not trying to make people barf on here by picturing different levels of urine.
I mean, it's a good idea, though. It's like, you know, I work in construction, so like in the Porta-Johns, it says if it looks like this, it's a bad smiley face. The darker it gets, like, because we work in the desert, and like when you go in the Porta-John too, it's like fucking hot as shit. So it's a reminder to say, hey, I need to chill back and drink some water.
It's kind of a sexist sign, though, because a woman who's going in the Porta-John can't see her pee, so that's a useless sign for her.
I know, but there's like, it's not sexist, but like there's just a bunch of dudes out there. There's not many like women out there.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, it's a true thing.
No, that's fair.
This is truth.
No, I know. So the last one that we're going to do is, we've talked about this every episode. You're probably, I don't know if you know anything about this or not. Well, we've talked about this every episode for recent episodes. So, I don't know, a couple episodes ago, we did serial killer trivia. And at some point in that serial killer trivia, Jenna said, like, serial, like the podcast. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of that podcast. It's one of the first I don't know if it's one of the first, but it was one of the biggest hit true crime podcasts, like back in early 2000s, I want to say. That may not be right. It's from a long time ago. Have you never listened to it? You never heard of it?
I've never listened to it, but I've heard about it through you.
Okay. So I'm not going to explain the whole thing because it'll be boring for listeners. But basically, the serial podcast, it went on to do seasons that covered other murders, but the whole first season is this reporter, and she's interviewing this, at the time he was like a young guy. He was in high school or had just gotten out of high school, Adnan Syed, and he was accused of murdering his high school girlfriend, Heyman Lee. And so the reporter, Rebecca Koenig, I think her name was, he was in jail. She interviewed him in jail. She was like she was just trying to find something more because the case was kind of light, and it was like, did he do this? There doesn't seem to be enough evidence, and it's incredibly interesting. I can't believe I didn't know you've never listened to it. That's what you should listen to tomorrow on your way to work. Like, it's very, very good. Anyways, Jenna asked about that in one of the episodes, and I had said in that episode, I asked ChatGPT, where's Adnan Syed now? Was he still in jail? The murder was in 1999. And ChatGPT told me, yes, he is. And then after that episode, I had a bunch of messages where people said, like, no, he's not. He just got released. His conviction was turned over in 2022. And I was like, oh, well. Oh. And I said, that's my mistake, because ChatGPT only goes up to 2021.
Yeah, 21. He's not up to date, man.
Right. So he was wrong.
Tell him to read the Tucson Weekly, by the way.
No, we're not going to talk about that. So on the last lookup list, I corrected myself. And I said, like, I asked ChatGPT. It was wrong. Sorry. He did get released. His conviction was turned over. And then we just got a message the other day from Nikki Scioli. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably saying that wrong. Scioli. I don't know. Nikki, if you hear this, message us and let us know. Anyways, she sent us something saying, an article saying that Adnan Syed's murder conviction was just reinstated. So he was, after 22 years in prison, he was let go because, I'm going to tell you why. I know you don't know this story, but it's so fascinating.
I can't wait to hear it.
Okay. So Syed was convicted of the 1999 murder of his high school girlfriend, Heyman Lee, and spent more than 20 years in prison. He maintained his innocence the entire time. He fought for multiple appeals for literally 2 decades. And then, obviously, this story was made famous by the podcast Serial. So he was cleared in all charges in September of 2022 after the Baltimore State Attorney's Office said its year-long investigation revealed that Syed had been wrongfully convicted of strangling and killing his girlfriend thanks to new DNA evidence that showed he was not involved in her death whatsoever. So he was let go. And then on March 28th, 2023, so last week, literally, a court in Maryland reinstated his conviction for the murder of his girlfriend in a 2-1 voting decision. The Maryland Court of Appeals ruled that the court failed to give Heyman Lee's family, so his girlfriend who was murdered's family, sufficient notice of the hearing where Adnan was going to be released.
Exonerated.
Mm-hmm. They didn't give her family enough notice. So her brother, who has been representing her since she died, couldn't get there in time and had to join through Zoom. And the court said this was not sufficient time. So we're reinstating it.
So he's got to go fight it again or something? That's weird.
So the brother was only told the day before the hearing, and the court ruled that this was insufficient to allow Mr. Lee to attend the hearing in person and said he had to attend it online. So he doesn't have to go back to prison for now. The court's order to reinstate his conviction and his sentence does not go into effect for 60 days. During that time, a new hearing will be scheduled. So his lawyer said this appeal was not about his innocence, but about notice. She said there's no basis for re-traumatizing Adnan by returning him to the status of a convicted felon. For the time being, he'll remain a free man, and ensuring justice for Heyman Lee does not require injustice for Adnan, which I thought was a really profound thing to say.
Muy interesante.
Yeah. I mean, I know you probably don't have much to say on that until you listen to it, but I really hope you do, because it's fascinating. And there's actually an HBO documentary special that was made on it a couple of years ago.
Was he ever thirsty?
You know that thirsty has multiple meanings. The second you say that, I think horny, and you're thinking thirsty like thirsty in your mouth.
I'm like thirsty. Yes, I'm thirsty.
That's because you're old.
Well, I'm not thinking about water. I'm thinking about a drink. You know?
No, I'm thinking about thirsty. Thirsty means you're thirsty. You're like.
Well, the definition of the word thirst or thirsty, it's I'm
desiring
liquid.
something. Yes.
Yeah.
But nowadays, thirsty means oh, you're so thirsty. You're trying to. I'm not getting into that.
Whatever.
I can't get into that.
Let's move on.
There's nothing to move on to. That's it. That's the whole lookup list.
What about eating cactus? We talked about that.
Well, we talked about that in the episode, but that was not on the lookup list.
Oh.
Yeah. Why? You want to tell us something about eating cactus? Because I had told Mark that when they were trying to stay alive and they'd run out of water, they were living on cactus fruit. And they were eating cactus fruit to try and survive.
Prickly pear fruit
Prickly pear cactus. Are there prickly pear cactus in the Chihuahuan Desert? Probably.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I think so.
Prickly pears everywhere. But was it hydrating? The question mark. Did you guys talk about that in the episode?
No, not really.
Did you work it out?
No, I don't think it was. I think it ultimately ended up not being as hydrating as they'd hoped, obviously, because one of them killed the other one from dehydration.
That's true.
So no, it was not.
Well, maybe they weren't eating the right cactus.
Tell us your story. Come on, I can see it on the tip of your tongue.
Okay, so anyways, with the story of cactus out here in the desert.
I knew there was a story.
So Tucson is on the border of Mexico and America, and a lot of the border crossers, illegals, whatever you want to say, they're travelers is why I like that. Immigrants, like my family was.
Well, you're trying to be very woke now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to be reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you are. Illegal's not the right word. Undocumented is.
That's right. Well, I'm of Irish and Polish descent, so someone came over here at one time.
Don't go there. Just keep moving.
Whatever. So anyways, we go out to a ranch that's very close to the border all the time, and go camp out there and everything, and you'll see the barrel cactuses or the saguaro cactus and they'll like at the bottom where they can get to them, they've like gotten the spines off, and they're like eating like it's almost like a gel in there. It's like aloe vera gel.
Ew.
Like really what it is. Yeah. And it seems like it would be hydrating, but it is not.
Oh, really?
Like it's like so thick you can't process it. It's not the same as like having water, but it's so juicy. Like there's probably like in a barrel cactus that's like the size of a 55 gallon barrel drum. There's probably like 500 gallons of water in that thing. Like there's
But
so
it's not water.
But it's not water. There's water in it,
gel.
but you can't get to it. Like you just see them and they try, but
I feel
it
like we
doesn't
should
work.
post some pictures of a barrel cactus because I can picture what that looks like, but probably people who aren't familiar with the desert maybe can't.
But it seems like it's a juicy.
It's a myth.
Yeah, it's a juicy thing to get into, but it's not.
How do you get all the prickles off of it, do you think? Because they're very prickly. I'm
Yeah,
looking
with
at
like
a picture
rock.
right now.
I mean, I think if I was desperate, just like use a rock, like you get into it. You know what I mean? It's just not hydrating whatsoever. It's just like a gel. It just your body can't process it.
So note to anyone who gets lost in the desert, don't try to drink or eat from barrel cactus.
Do not do that.
You know what?
Or cattle tanks, like you'll get sick.
Oh, cattle troughs.
Yeah, we call them tanks out here. I mean, they're just really just like where a bulldozer or someone digs a hole in the ground. But I mean, it's very stagnant water in the desert.
Don't try to out Arizona me.
Been here my whole life. What are you gonna do?
Okay. I thought of something else that we didn't say last time that I think is important to bring because my dad always says this, that you should always bring some type of like needle nose pliers or tweezers because you get cactus prickles in you, and that's the best way to get them out because if you try and get them out with your hand, then they're going to stick into your hand.
Or they're hard to get out. But yeah, I mean, that's not the worst thing. Like you just
No, it's not the worst thing. I know, but I'm just saying if you're going hiking in the desert, it's always smart to bring a needle nose plier or a tweezers and very strong gloves because then you can also pull them out with those sometimes.
The most important thing is water.
Yes, water, hydrate.
And a compass if you know how to use it.
That's true. But most phones have a compass nowadays. This took place in 1999, so.
Yeah, but even now with a phone, like maybe you don't have service. And plus, like, honestly, if you really think about it, a compass, what does that do for you if you don't know where north is? Like,
nothing.
It points to north, but you don't know your direction. Like, you need to know where you're at, you know?
That's true. I'm really bad with directions, as everyone who actually listens to this knows, and our human GPS listener, Sean Thompson, knows.
The biggest thing is when you go into the wilderness is realize where your starting point is. If you're 10 degrees off true north, if you leave that way, always head 10 degrees
What
off
does
true north.
degrees mean?
What's the degree of like, so true north is 0. You know, if you're 0 degree on something, if you go 10 degrees off, as you travel distance, you're going to increase your distance away from that.
Oh, like a clock?
Well, yeah, like if you looked at the 12 on the clock and you headed towards 12, but then you went to 1,
That's like 5 degrees?
Yeah, you're degrees off, and so you're going to keep traveling, and every mile that you go, you're getting further away. So that's why the degrees matters because...
Like the mic is getting further away from your mouth as you talk with your
right
hands.
here. I know. So anyways, you just follow it back. The biggest thing is any type of hiking, anything like that, just pay attention of where you start and where you're at. And how to get back to it.
I bet David and Rafi would have really liked to have had you in their ear telling them that back then.
Yeah, I would have liked drinking their blood and stabbed both of them. You know what I mean?
God, stop it.
They're like, you're so hydrated. Your skin looks so amazing. Oh, yeah, I started right away, you know?
Gosh.
I don't want to be another story, you know?
Keep it up. You might be another story.
Haha.
Okay. That's it. This has been the longest lookup list we've ever had.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming and all your profanity.
Well, I like to keep it spicy, you know? Muy caliente.
All right. So guys, I'm going to get this published tonight. It's 8:00 now. So this is going to be a late night lookup list. And then tomorrow morning, you will have episode 17. And that's it. That's all.
In a world with bonus episodes.
Stop it. Okay, I played Mark. I used to work on a show called Minor Adventures with Topher Grace, and every episode was like a different little adventure that could be done on a podcast. And one time we had a a movie trailer announcer come on. And I had to write some movie trailers for him to read with Topher Grace and Wilmer Valderrama. And I played that episode for Mark because Scott Rummel, I think his name was the movie announcer, and he does it just like that. In a world
with a new kind of hero.
Yeah, that was one that I wrote. Anyways,
I'm obsessed with it.
If you guys are looking for something to listen to, go look up Minor Adventures with Topher Grace and look for the Wilmer Valderrama episode. And I wrote those movie trailers that they read, and Mark just constantly likes to like slip into that movie trailer voice when he's just in regular life, like, tonight we're having club sandwiches.
In a world where the podcast bonus episode is over.
Yes. So on that note, we're going to say goodbye and good night. And thank you for listening. Thank you for coming, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is my house, so like,
Thanks
for having me.
Thanks for having me. And we'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Later.